Live look at the CNN presidential debate in Atlanta, which you can watch right here on Fox tonight at 9. The media's in a tizzy that Joe Biden's brain's going to malfunction on stage and democracy will die. They're deploying all sorts of gimmicks and fact checkers to help Sleepy get over that finish line. CNN showing us how the muting mics will work. Watch this.
When the lights show yellow, there are 15 seconds left in a candidate's answer or response. When the lights flash red, there are 5 seconds left. And when the display is solid red, the time is up. At that point, the candidate's microphone will be turned off, and the other candidate will have their microphone turned on.
He's going to interrupt me as I'm speaking, and this is what it will sound like. My volume remains constant, while Phil's interruption can be difficult to understand.
Harold, okay, we'll get to that in a second. Chuck Todd's wetting the bed that former president will appear presidential.
They so want to have a different experience than the last debate they had with him, or the first debate from the last cycle. And ironically, it's the single best debate Biden had, right? Because Trump's behavior really sort of almost cemented Biden's lead by that point. And it may have done Trump in at that point. And now here's the Biden campaign trying to come up with a set of rules to make sure Trump seems more presentable. It's a head scratcher to me that they went so out of their way to try to create an environment that will make Trump seem more presidential.
You used to be a politician, right?
I was.
So you did debates like this?
I wish I'd been in one like this.
Okay.
I've done debates before.
That can be arranged.
So you're going to have to watch the clock go down, and there's no leeway. So if you're landing a great point and you're 2 seconds over, and no one's going to hear it.
Yeah. Well, I think they may give some leeway to 2 or 3 seconds, let somebody finish. But I like these rules. Chuck is a friend, but I disagree with him on this. I think that when you want voters to hear candidates lay out their vision, defend their record, and again, we can't forget, this is the first time we've had 2 former presidents running in the modern era, and they're just not saying, I'm going to do this and you didn't do this. They each have had an opportunity to do it for 4 years. So they'll have to defend their records as well as lay out their vision, and they actually have records as president. So I don't have a problem with the mics being turned up. I do hope, to your point, Jess, I think if someone is making a point right at the end, you let them finish their point.
Well, it said the mics are going to get muted.
Do that.
Well,
we don't know.
It's just like we don't. I hope
and right
they
now
don't do
you can
that.
see
But
Trump's plane landing in Atlanta, just coming in from West Palm Beach.
He's coming in hot.
Yeah, he's coming in hot and slow. Judge Janine, the muted mics, who do you think that helps?
You know, I think that ultimately, I think it helps Joe Biden because in the end, I don't know that Joe Biden can even get through to the muted mics point. I don't know if I'm making sense here. In other words,
when it comes out, when he runs out of time.
I know what the mute button that runs out of time.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't know that Joe Biden has that much to say. I don't know if he's going to get to that point. That's why I'm wondering about this. And, you know, I don't think there's going to be any leeway. I don't know any more than you do. But if they've got the yellow and then the flashing red and then that, you know, flat red, they cannot give any leeway or extra time to anyone. That is not something that should be debatable or that should be movable. And in the end, you know, the whole thing is really about, I felt like I was watching a TSA flight video. Like it goes red and then it goes yellow and then you have to be quiet. And then I think this is all to Donald Trump's benefit in the end.
I wish we had a mute button on this show, Greg.
Why?
You know why.
You know, that hurts. You know, we're supposed to
No,
be...
it's for Dana.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, tell me about
He really
it.
meant for me.
I just realized that Joe, you know what Joe Biden is?
What?
He's a debate prepper.
Oh.
You know, he's holed up in a bunker with a gallon of Gatorade mixed with Adderall. He's got a ham radio. He's got a pantry full of cream peas. He thinks outside the world's ending, mainly because of him. But, you know, oh, he's going to come out. He comes out once every 4 years to debate Trump. That's the only thing he has to prepare for. No wonder he's going to do well. He hasn't prepared for anything else. The light goes yellow. He's going to think, oh, does that mean I pee? The light goes red. He goes, time for a blood transfusion. It's going to be very confusing to him. But these technical changes and restrictions make the questions all the more important. You're going to sit there and you're going to hear the questions and you're going to know, did Jake just shade that question to help Joe, or did he shade it to hurt Trump? Make no mistake, those two hosts despise Trump. That is not an opinion, that is a fact, right? So I think that they need to, like, I would like to see, I came up with some questions for both of them. This is for Dana Bash. You know, if she should ask Joe, you know, Trump has been compared to Adolf Hitler by people in the press, by you, and by others. And then she should just look over at Tapper, who had compared him to. Given that the Fine People hoax, which you ran on, has been universally debunked, do you think it was worth the division that caused the country? Given that now we have actual people in the streets praising Hitler and Nazis, did your false claims devalue those kinds of threats so now they aren't actually seen as awful? That would be, I would ask them about the return to, Biden about the return to unity. You promised a return to unity, and you were going after the white supremacists, you know, in our midst. Yet we see under your presidency, we have a Charlottesville every day, and it's coming from the left. And even members of your own party, the Squad. Did you make a mistake focusing on the wrong people because of their political leanings at the expense of real, actual threats coming from inside or around your tent? Those would be really good questions to ask. And the reason why I bring those up, it will give credibility to Tapper and Bash because everybody knows how much they hate Trump. They actually, if there's going to be a kill shot, has to come from them.
And we have confirmed, I believe, that Jake was a flack for Hooters.
Oh.
Really?
Yes, that's confirmed.
Wow.
Dana,
no wonder he hates orange.
how much should Trump take on the moderators? I mean, let's just expecting that they are unfair.
Well, it's going to be pretty interesting, and President Trump could appear any moment now, so you'll see that live. I mean, the return of the fact checkers after 3.5 years of hibernation is going to be interesting. But President Trump, I feel like he has to be his own fact checker. And you can imagine that there's a lot of hollow victories that the Biden team talks about, right? They'll say, the economy is great. What are you talking about? I mean, the job market's great. The border's closed. And remember when Reagan said, there you go again. That's the moment from that debate that you remember because that encapsulated everything because Reagan couldn't fend off all the things. He just had to use that one little rhetorical flourish. But President Trump is going to have to figure out a way to kind of be his own fact checker on this. I think that these rules could actually, I think that they're fine. I think they're good for the viewer, I hope, because I think interruptions aren't good for, that didn't work out for President Trump that one time. Plus, if Biden runs out of words before his time is ended and he says, well, anyway,
Yeah.
if I were President Trump, I'd say, no, please finish. And let it hang there. Like a
Thing that hangs.
pregnant pause.
Like a pregnant pause.
Pregnant pause.
And
That's
I'm not
it.
expecting
And
it.
you know,
I'm
Debs
a
hate
little bloated.
everything that's pregnant.
That's true. Yeah, that abortion thing is going to be tough because that's going to come out really early. and
Yeah,
Trump's
that's an
gonna have
easy.
to have
That's
a
an
big
easy
answer
thing.
for that.
Okay, can I bring something
Sure.
up? He was on a podcast called the All-In Podcast with all these super smart Silicon Valley billionaires, and they asked him about that, and he had the best answer. It was basically, it's now in the hands of the states, and what you're looking at the states is abortion isn't in trouble. People are making up their decisions. It shouldn't have been a federal. It wasn't
I
a
don't know.
constitution.
I mean, like
think that issue
the
helps Biden.
pro-life, pro-choice community is freaking out today after a Supreme Court decision in Idaho. And so what they'll say, what Biden will say is that I will protect women all throughout the country. He only cares about certain women in certain states. I imagine that's what
Right.
Biden will
And then I would just say you're
Just-
not protecting people like Lake and Riley. You're not
Yeah.
protecting a lot of the women that can't go even into a New York City subway anymore.
There's one
Speaking
other
of-
point. Apparently, there's one print reporter that's allowed in the room. So my question is that apparently the White House Correspondents Association wants someone in there from the pool. And all they're allowing is one print reporter. Why not have someone else in there?
It's
who is
wrong.
allowed? It is wrong. I mean, why? How does that
And it's
benefit?
ridiculous.
What are they thinking?
I have
Why
no
is that
idea.
a good thing?
You let the White
Well,
House
both
press
of them
pool
agreed
get
to
in.
that. Trump and
No,
Biden
well,
both
Trump
agreed
would
to that.
agree to meeting him in a dark alley in Harlem. It doesn't matter. He wanted to debate.
Hey, okay, that's enough, you two.
Yeah.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.